There comes a time in every man's life where he must leave the nest and make something of himself. But I'm a 40-year-old balding man. I weigh 300 pounds. I live in North Dakota. But 40 isn't that old. 40 isn't that old. I can still make something of myself. Ever since I was a young boy, I always looked up to Satoru Gojo. How effortlessly he dog-walked all of his opponents. Until that day. Monday, September 25th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Gojo lost. I've been ruminating over his failure for the past 3 years. And I've come to the conclusion that I will become the strongest sorcerer in his place. The strongest of the future. I began my journey by observing the list of my future opponents. As the wise Sun Tzu once said,
"If you know your opponent, and you know yourself, you do not fear your opponent, because you know him."
Very wise, Sun Tzu. Very wise. Suddenly, the young and bashful grasshopper curse, Yaya, presented themselves to me. They'd gotten the jump on me, racking up damage while I was looking at the leaderboard. I was already starting at a disadvantage, and I was pretty badly injured. My right lung had suffered a sizable puncture. My subclavian artery is completely severed. I got 4 cracked ribs. Not to mention my humerus and corporals are pretty much shot. I didn't think much of this opponent. Judging by their kill count of only 1,000, I could beat them 6 out of every 7 days a week. I wasn't going to take any chances though. And so, I began cooking. I activated my super lightning mode to indicate I was serious about the fight. I will become the strongest. After being picked up and thrown to the ceiling by my opponent, they finally realized the futility of the fight, and so they hung themselves. After Yaya did their best Jeffrey Epstein impression, they quickly returned to the scene of the crime in a last-ditch effort to remove them and their constituents from something that we, at Jack Uter headquarters, have just uncovered as the Yaya files. I was close to meeting my favorite financier in heaven, so I had to activate my secret technique. Maximum output! Domain expansion! Greedy gaga goo gamble guppies! As a former Vegas stripper myself, I was able to use my background in counting cards to win the gamble, and sent my opponent running home to their mommy ASMR. After thoroughly ravaging my opponent with my greedy goo goo gaga gamble guppy technique, I hit a little belly bounce for old time's sake. It's one thing to be good at sorcery, and it's one thing to know your opponent. But if you don't learn from them, then you don't get better. So let's take a look back and observe our fight against Yaya. Yaya had extreme battle IQ. They opted not to run or to fight back against my greedy Goo Goo Gaga Gamble Guppy technique, but rather to hide. This was truly a stroke of genius on Yaya's behalf. Not every fight is a physical one. And sometimes you have to outsmart your opponent if you want to beat them. I began to observe the list of players once more and search for my next opponent. But that's when I spotted him. The IDF soldier, Friendly Burrito. He began to violently molest me with all of his might. Not to mention his years of training in Krav Maga. I was no match for him, for he is the greatest Israeli soldier the world has ever known. Upon respawning for my one-on-one with Friendly Burrito, I was quietly and peacefully practicing my guitar, when all of a sudden, the cruel and the unjust Yaya returned for the 3rd time to restore their pride. As I watched him carefully creep up behind me, I realized why they call him clever. He has equipped himself with an improvised explosive device, and is approaching with intent to use it. I used my enhanced reaction time I gained from fighting against Friendly Burrito's Krav Maga to retaliate with my own overwhelming force. As I was put in belt to ass, I thought it appropriate to remind Yaya the full extent of my curse technique. Domain expansion. No! 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 I wasn't hitting any of my jackpots. I was on my last legs. I can't win! Got him. My jackpot hit on my last bit of health, and I carelessly eviscerated Yaya. He was just a scrub, however. My true opponent was the greatest Israeli soldier the world has ever known, and his overwhelming presence. I searched far and wide for any trace left behind by his cursed Jewish sorcery, but found nothing. My only lead was the agitating noise coming from an unknown source. Perhaps the two are connected. I discovered another sorcerer, who was way above my league. Perhaps even stronger than Friendly Burrito. My technique was lacking, and I needed a change. If I wanted to deal with my opponents quickly and efficiently, it became obvious to me that I must embrace the overwhelming speed and power of the Tickle Monster. I had just about given up on finding my arch-nemesis, when all of a sudden, the domain next to me popped, and I saw him, standing there. You are mine! You are mine! Behold, I am here! Here to destroy you, once and for all! Psychic attack, go! It seemed that a third party has joined our battle, so I swiftly and gently removed him. Think you're safe, huh? You will never escape! Ah, yes! An absolute flawless victory! I truly am the strongest! The pleasure from defeating him was so orgasmic that I suffered 100 seizures and had to jiggle around like a little sea slug. Although it may not look like it, I am beating with excitement. Although I had beaten him physically, he beat me mentally. I suffered an atomic level cortisol spike during the fight, and I ruined years of painstaking looks maxing. I am above him physically, but he mentally bested me. I was awakened to my impermanence in the Jujutsu food chain. Yaya was below me, and above me stood Friendly Burrito. But who was above him? I left the server in shame, wandering eastward in search for answers. That's when I landed in a server with the humble Leon. The Great. The greatest. I wonder what kind of man that is. I knew it was him as soon as my eyes took to him. It was him. The strongest. Leon. The greatest. He was everything. Radiant and beautiful. I did not wish to even challenge him. For studying under Senpai's guidance would be the greatest.
On the next episode of Jack Eater, Jack attempts to avenge his fallen sensei. He's too strong, and makes some strange new friends along the way.
Are you a pedophile?